Is the microphone on? Let's wait for this puppy to warm up. There we are. Hey gang, I'm Steve. It could be the drugs, or it could be the funeral parlor smells that creep up like ghosts. But I can't sleep. So I'm going to talk to you guys about it in a second. Hey gang, welcome to the Deployed from Detroit School of Leadership and Madness. It's Dark 30, so it's just me, Steve, and I can't sleep. But that's not new for me. I haven't slept in 10 years. I mean, I close my eyes and I fall asleep or do something, but these didn't start this way. For some reason, it's just hard. The idea of going to sleep is nerve-wracking. It kicks off anxiety it comes from deep places, and so just the thought of sleep is painful enough, which sucks. Because I remember when I could look forward to sleep. I could look forward to a nap. I could fall asleep anywhere. I could fall asleep in a ditch. I could fall asleep on a ladder. I could fall asleep in the front yard. I used to be able to sleep anywhere. Sleep comfortably. I used to have one nightmare when I was a kid. It was really weird. Carmen Sandiego would interrogate me, but she was always surrounded by goblins. I don't know what the fuck that means, but meh. But for the most part, I had regular, normal kid dreams. And then in 2008-ish, stopped sleeping for about 21 days. I got about 4 hours of sleep in a 21-day period between, like, trying to get naps in and this, that, and the other. And I had sleep scheduled. It was all there. I just couldn't fall asleep. It wasn't a thing. And then what's weird about that time period is I remember having the best dream I ever had, I think. And I remember that being worse than the nightmares that were starting. Like, it impacted me more during the day, that good dream. Because we were knee deep in snow at that point. And I remember a lot of that dream. There was a party, like a going away party of some sort, at a park. Probably, in my head it's not the same, but in my mind it's kind of like the park in Milford by the river. But there was someone sitting on my lap, someone who cared about me. And I could smell them, and I could feel their shirt. I could feel everything. But then I woke up in the fucking cold. And I walked outside into something that smelled like jet aircraft fucking or something horrendous like that. Just, there was never not something on fire. There was never a temperature you could get to that you could call normal. Everything was too hot or too cold. And then I was mad at myself for having such a good dream. Not for, oh, you don't deserve it or anything, but I was upset that I was torturing myself like that. Because I was definitely tortured the rest of the day by something I didn't have anymore. But more so, something I never had to begin with. But I don't know, that was in there. That was in those works. But now, bits and pieces and this, that, and the other, and where it comes to now, sure, I could fall asleep after I take one of my fucking sedatives, and I got 3 pills I take at night just to turn my heart just above dead. Like, it's probably zombie medicine. I bet you if you take enough, you could probably make a zombie. Don't do that. Just saying, though. But it takes clinical effort to put me under. But I most assuredly don't rest. Luckily, the pill I take for my nightmares, it's called Prazosin, if you're interested in talking to your doctor. I don't necessarily recommend drugs for everything or most things or what have you, but it doesn't, I don't know that it stops the nightmares. It may. From what I've told, though, from people who've observed me sleeping, it doesn't seem to. I still seem to be having a pretty rough time in there. But for some reason, Prazosin does something to where either I don't kick into like dream states as often or whatever, but the most interesting thing is I don't really remember them when I wake up. Pardon. Which is good, because then you're not carrying over the sort of weight of it. But it's definitely, it's the same kind of fear as being afraid of death, because I know I'm not going to remember it. I know there's no rational explanation for fear. Nothing in there is going to hurt me, because I sort of have a repetitive loop of nightmares. I'm pretty sure what's going to be in there. There's no real reason to be afraid. But every night, this big, strong son of hillbillies and Vikings and warriors is afraid of his own fucking dreams. And so every night, rather than fall asleep, cuddled up or comfortable or anything like that, mostly it's an exercise in wearing myself down. Until I can't fight it anymore. And then I just succumb to it. Which I'm pretty sure is... I've watched a lot of people die. And it looks the fucking same. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's... But I've said it aloud. I've named that demon. And it's not doing it. So something else is in there, I think. It's gotta be. Or I just have to remember my own stupid fucking adage that it doesn't get better. You do. Or in this case, me, hopefully. Before I stopped sleeping overseas, it didn't necessarily come out of nowhere. I had been... Nothing egregious had happened, nothing too surprising. But I don't know, I'd expected a lot, so I guess not much was going to surprise me. But what did is the thing that lasts. And the surprise was how I would feel not just doing my job, but doing it outside of the vacuum of training and all that kind of shit and all the, it's gonna be like this, folks, and it's never like that. When you see it working, it's insane. When you see all the things you've been trying so hard to get right, and then when you see them, it's insane. It's magic. It makes you feel just as powerful as you should when all those pieces come together. When all that effort you've put in, all that training, you and your buddies and your teammates, and then you finally get there and it starts working. And then there's just the bits you don't account for because you don't know to. And so a weird thing for me is I would go on smoke breaks all the time because, let's be serious, you're losing your mind out there. Just, it's not crazy. It wasn't like, I don't want to give you the intention that like it was fucking bananas. Where I was a cakewalk. There was little to no threat. The worst we had was a pretty intense infiltration of Russian mafia, but I don't necessarily think they were ever trying to do anything forceful. There's evidence to the contrary that they got weird, but that evidence also supports just bad hygiene. So, worst comes to worst, I felt safer where I was than like where I was from. I felt way safer in Bishkek than I have ever felt in Michigan. It was weird. That was weird. That was something I hadn't considered. And Bishkek was in fucking ruins. But it was also more alive than any city I'd ever seen. It was amazing. It was people living in spite of gloom and then turning it into something beautiful, and like there was always light in every dark spot, and so I never really felt afraid. Even when you ran into mobsters, like you knew who they worked for and shit. Like it wasn't secret, it wasn't anything. It was just like, that's them, that's what they do, don't ask them more than anything. Okay, cool. And like we had strict rules not to fuck with them, so we're hands off anyway. Like it's all kind of like there was no guns pointed, but what ends up being weird is like the new shit you have to be afraid of, and all the like they're telling you like, oh, you got to do this and watch out for this, and this is gonna happen and that's gonna happen, and just I don't know. It's difficult to explain. So there weren't any bombs bursting in air where I was at. It was just a lot of spy versus spy, and mostly good times though. Like shit out, I had a great time. But it was highlighted by these weird moments that really surprised me. And they happened at the smoke pits a lot, where my buddy Ray and I sort of became these traveling Buddhas. And it was all by accident, kind of, really. I mean, I think just because of who we are, that's why we leaned that way. But we just went to a smoke pit after chow one time. We decided to go to one away from the shop, so nobody would see us and we wouldn't have to do any work. And so we ended up in the smoke pit with a bunch of Marines who just came back from a nightmare. And they were telling us all their stories, and a couple of them turned out to be horseshit stories, but those are the best ones. But a lot of them, is all what went down, and not much of it was great. And a lot of what they seemed interested in talking to us because we were from the morgue, and I think there was just a relatability there. And then also because we weren't also Marines, they were like, who the fuck are they going to tell? And so there was this weird freedom they had. They're like, we'll just tell these cooks who also work with the dead guys, who also run bingo parlor games, who. What else do you guys do? What the fuck do you. That threw them. Nobody. Look up services and you try to figure out what the fuck I did. I still bet you. It's hard. But they wanted to talk and fucking hey, we didn't feel like doing slideshows, so we're gonna listen. And then it became sort of part of our routine, part of our schedule. It was we built it into our lunch breaks, we built it into our sort of, afternoon tea and second breakfast, and it was part of just the rotation. Run by, see how everybody's doing, and then I sort of utilized it as I was the marketing director, so part of it for me initially too was like, are you guys getting any of the shit we're putting out? Do you know that there's this? Do you know that there's that? And then so some of that conversation ended up being, these guys are telling us these fucking nightmare stories and they're shaking and you're like, fuck me, dude, you look like my grandpa. Explains why his pictures are so blurry back then. And so we try to help him. Say, hey, all right, over here's the chapel, over here's the shrink, over here's this, over here's that, blah, 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 blah. And so we're doing our best to try and get people to the services they needed. Don't need a shrink? How about an Xbox? You just want to fuck around on a game? Let's do that. Come with me. And so I became sort of the word of mouth marketing of my own sort of, I put up posters and flyers for all the shit. That was a lot of like the meat and potatoes of my day was spent up like figuring out when activities were happening and then trying to figure out how to tell all the people they wanted to go to them, how to get to them. And it was interesting. I had no experience prior to that. I learned it all on the job, and holy crap. But segues beyond segues, in going and trying to figure it out, like, hey, do you guys know there's a karaoke thing going on? And this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. There was also the better, hey, Chapel's got a thing going on Saturdays and Wednesdays if you want to go talk to somebody about blah, blah, blah. Or, the Shrink's got a group thing if you guys just want to yell at a pillow for a minute or, trying our best. But where the nightmare comes in is this weird thing where I can't remember this kid's face. And he's always in there. And I can't see his face. But I was telling him, it was real rough. I was like, hey, you should, definitely, let me take you over to the chapel or over to the shrink there and get something started. So, and he cut me off pretty quick. He said, no, I'm not going to the shrink because I just don't need this shit in my paperwork, man. I just started trying to make corporal. I don't need this shit. And I can't go to the chapel because there's just no way there's a God after what I saw. That's the starring role in all my dreams every night. So when I close my eyes and feel the different parts of my body falling asleep and fading away from me, I know that when I open them again, or whatever the fuck dreaming is, at some point I'm going to see a boy without a face who's going to tell me how there can't be a God. Every night. For 11 years now? Not 10. Probably 10. You can probably see why I'm a little frazzled sometimes. Why it's difficult to wake up in the morning. I have a hard time making appointments. Because the shit it takes to put me down takes quite a while to wear off. Yeah. And I don't know how to make it better. I don't know that it becomes better. But if any of my bullshit's true, I have to believe I'm some guy who's gonna fucking figure it out. And maybe... Hey, Sam, thanks. And, you know, this could be part of it. This could be how it stops. But as much as I know it ends, and as much as it'd be nice for it to end tonight, I know it won't. And that's where I have to do all that fucking warrior stuff I've been talking about. Where you take your drugs, feel your heart fucking go down to cricket timing. Nah, crickets are too fast. That's a bad. It's insane. Somebody took my blood pressure one morning when I woke up and it was like 50 over something. And they're like, Jesus. I'm like, give it a minute. Give it a minute. It'll be back up. Get drugs, man. And until I figured out that's the solution, I still have to have the dream. Be lucky that I won't remember it sometimes. And maybe find a heavy sleeper and somebody who doesn't mind being choked in their sleep. Fuck. What a selling point. Oh, man. The one thing we could never promise those guys, if we were going to be successful when we were running smoke pit to smoke pit. And then this is where I picked this kind of shit up. Is, you know, what could I honestly tell them? And I could never honestly tell them it was going to get better. I could never honestly tell them that. I could never honestly tell them they were going to get better. But I could tell them it was going to end at some point. And the best I could do was encourage them to stick it out and see what happens. And just see how it ends. That's how these fights work. Alright, gang. I'm gonna go take my fucking horse tranquilizers and turn my heart off and go talk to the Dream Police and the Faceless Boy and whatever the fuck comes next, but... Hey. Sleep tight, alright? Love the fuck out of you, alright? Go do some warrior stuff.